Welcome back, comic book fans. As we settle into the winter of 2023, it's time to dive into another Comics to Invest in Top 10. But this time around, we're taking a look at some of the most underappreciated comics from the Silver Age. These comics may not have the same name or maybe issue recognition as some of the more popular keys from the era, but they are just as deserving of your attention. From lesser-known moments to forgotten tales or characters that have faded from the spotlight, these comics have stood the test of time and are still just as thrilling today as they were decades ago. So, without further ado, let's dive into the top 10 underappreciated Silver Age comics for the winter of 2023. Kicking off our top 10 list is the August 1966 issue of a legendary comic book title that we rarely talk about on this channel. Action Comics number 340. The problem with so many of the major characters that hail from the Golden Age is that by the time the Silver and Bronze Ages roll around, the characters and their supporting casts of friends and foes are fairly well established, so it can be challenging to find true keys such as first appearances of significant characters. However, DC was having a pretty good summer in 1966, as just a couple of months before this issue came out, Batman gained a new and now legendary villain in Poison Ivy, and Action Comics 340 brought the same for Superman with the debut of Parasite. Like Batman 181, Action Comics 340 included a pinup in the centerfold, which is notoriously missing from copies of the issue. Future Marvel editor-in-chief Jim Shooter scripted the story, which was drawn by Al Plastino, while Kurt Swan provided the cover art. Recent sales include a CGC 9.0 sale in January 2023 for $500, a CGC 8.5 sale in January 2023 for $400, while two CGC 6.0 copies have sold for $179 and $173 in January 2023. That's not too bad for a mid-grade Silver Age first appearance. Dropping into the number 9 spot is an early Marvel crossover issue, Journey into Mystery 109. Published in October 1964, JIM 109 is the first appearance of Magneto and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants outside of the pages of X-Men, and was one of the most obvious challenges Thor really could have faced. After all, what good is an enchanted hammer when you're facing off against a guy that's the master of magnetism? Written by Stan Lee with Jack Kirby cover and interior art, the story, which was titled When Magneto Strikes, includes an old-school plot point that you just don't see anymore: the good guy submarine and bad guy submarine chase scene. It just doesn't get any more old school than that, when everybody had a submarine parked in their garage. CGC 7.0 sales are averaging a price of $269 over the last 90 days, while CGC 9.0 copies are averaging at $980 over the same period. For a 1964 Marvel book, especially an early Magneto appearance, that's pretty affordable. Nostalgia is on the rise as of late, with pop culture classics like Scooby-Doo and the Addams Family garnering a fair amount of attention. So let's dive into some nostalgia here at the number 8 spot with 4-Color Comics 1042. This is the first appearance of Alvin and the Chipmunks. Published in October to December, I don't know what that's all about, 4-Color 1042 brought Ross Bagdasarian's Chipmunks to comics for the first time. Created in late 1957 as the fictitious band behind the Chipmunks song, the Chipmunks were an instant smash. Believe it or not, the Chipmunks have topped the Billboard Hot 100 twice and won 5 Grammy Awards. Unfortunately, not much is known about the artists behind the 7 Chipmunk stories contained within this issue, but the credit for every story is given to writer Paul S. Newman. Along with their human manager and adoptive father Dave, who also debuts in this issue, the Chipmunks would go on to be featured in a variety of comics, most notably from Dell and Harvey Comics. CGC copies of this issue are few and far between, with only 5 sales in total reporting on GPA for the previous 2 years. A CGC 6.0 copy sold in November 2022 for $385, while 3 raw sales from that same month ranged from $60 for a reader copy to $264 for a self-described 7.0. Our number 7 book took the Tales of Suspense title, which had primarily focused on the tales of Iron Man since his premiere in March of 1963, and turned it into a 1-2 punch. Coming in at number 7 is Tales of Suspense number 59. Published in November 1964, TOS 59 shook up the title, changing it from an 18-page Iron Man story and a 5-issue Watcher story, as the previous issues had been, to a true double feature with a 13-page Iron Man story and a 10-page Captain America story, all in one book. After a classic hero versus hero battle between the two heroes in issue 58, similar to what we'd just seen over in TOS's sister title, Tales to Astonish, with Ant-Man and the Hulk, Tales of Suspense finally gave the resurrected Captain America a place for his solo adventures. This issue also includes the first appearance of Edwin Jarvis, who's Tony Stark's butler. But you might be surprised to know that Jarvis makes his first appearance in the Captain America story, not the Iron Man story. Looking at GPA for TOS 59, we see a book that's still feeling the correction in several grades, but there's some green that's starting to creep back into the page, especially above the 6.5 grade. Looking at CGC 8.0 sales, the 90-day average price is sitting at $577, though a stronger sale in December 2022 for $650 is helping to hold that average price up. There's only been one sale in a CGC 6.0 in the last 90 days, and that was for $281, though just below that at the 5.5 grade, there have been 5 sales with an average price of $181 over the same period, which would tend to support the value of that 6.0 sale. Some of the most beloved characters of the last 90 years are from the rowdy bunch of funny animals known collectively as the Looney Tunes. From Bugs Bunny to Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, and even Elmer Fudd, the Looney Tunes gang were a staple for many generations. But one character would rise to prominence in the early 1990s with his own television show and more licensed product than you could possibly imagine. Our number 6 book features that character's first comic book appearance in Tasmanian Devil and His Tasty Friends number 1. That's right, we're talking about the Tasmanian Devil, or Taz as he would go by in the 1990s. With the launch of Tasmania in 1991, Taz sunk his teeth into a new generation of fans. The character was first introduced in 1954 as a one-off Bugs Bunny foil, and was nearly canceled until Jack Warner himself had the character reinstated. Tasmanian Devil and His Tasty Friends number 1 was published in February 1963 by Gold Key Comics, and the stories within were drawn by Pete Alvarado and Tony Strobel, with Strobel also providing the cover art. Unfortunately, the writing credits are unknown for the interior stories. Sales for this issue are infrequent at best, with only 2 sales reporting on eBay, both of those in November 2022 for raw copies. A CGC 9.4 copy did sell in December 2022 for $720, while the most recent CGC sale prior to that was for a 6.0 in November 2021 for only $145. So if you look back on Tasmania fondly like I do, or you otherwise enjoy the character, this is an affordable first appearance of a cultural icon, and that's not a string of words that you can put together very often. Like all bands or groups, members come and members go. And the Avengers got their first major taste of that in our number 5 book, Avengers number 16. Sure, the Hulk left in issue 2, and he was quickly replaced by a resurrected Captain America in issue 4. But Avengers 16 saw a major lineup change as long-term team members Quicksilver, Hawkeye, and the Scarlet Witch joined the team, while pretty much everybody other than Cap left the team. As the sole remaining original-ish member, Cap took on the leadership role of the team, and the Jack Kirby cover captures him in a great pose exclaiming, "Avengers Assemble," a phrase that's widely known today, but it had only been around for a few issues at that point, after debuting in Avengers number 10. Published in May 1965, the story was titled The Old Order Changeth and was scripted, of course, by Stan Lee, and the interior art was a collaborative effort between Jack Kirby, Dick Ayers, and Carl Hubble. Oh, and if you're looking for a little something extra, this issue also includes an early appearance of both Kang and Immortus if you're chasing down such things. As of the recording of this video, the most recent sale of a CGC 8.0 copy went for $480, which is $44 below the $524 12-month average. The price takes a bit of a step up in 8.5, averaging $886 across 2 sales in the last 90 days, while 6.0s are barely clearing the $200 mark with a 90-day average of just $216. Our number 4 book is a great example of how sometimes even comic book publishers have no idea what they have in a character. Let's take a look at Archie's Madhouse number 27, the first cover appearance of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Debuting in October 1962, just 2 months after Marvel had introduced Spider-Man and Thor for perspective, Sabrina was never intended to be an ongoing character. Co-creator George Gladier said he and fellow co-creator Dan Parent, who also provided the cover art for Madhouse 27, envisioned the story to be a one-shot, but fans just kept asking for more. So we would get a follow-up Sabrina appearance in Madhouse 24, then another in issue 25 and 26. And then when issue 27 came out in August of 1963, something new happened. Sabrina made the cover of the book for the very first time. But readers would be pretty disappointed when they opened the issue and found that no Sabrina story was inside. Sabrina would be an on-again, off-again feature within the book, but it would be more than 6 years later before Archie Comics realized the popularity of the character and would put her on a comic book cover once again with the release of Archie's TV Laugh-Out number 1 in December 1969. By the following September, Sabrina would have her own animated series airing on CBS every Saturday morning, showing just how disconnected Archie Comics was from the popularity of the character. If you're not much of an Archie collector, let me help break it down for you. Issues of Archie's Madhouse can be pretty challenging to track down in general, and then when you add in something like Sabrina's first cover appearance, it makes tracking down a copy of this issue just that much more challenging. To help back that claim up, there hasn't been a recorded sale of a CGC graded copy since November of 2021, when a 7.0 sold for $680. Currently, there are a handful of copies available on eBay, with recent raw sales ranging from $61 to upwards of $150 for varying grades. I would expect to pay upwards of $100 for a decent looking lower mid-grade copy of this book, but be ready for a steep incline in price if you find this book in fine or higher. Looking back over the last several years, the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina show definitely helped drive copies of Madhouse 22 to the grading companies, but Madhouse 27 doesn't appear to have had the same experience. Cover appearance or no? If ever there was a comic book that suffered from middle child syndrome, it would be our number 3 selection, Fantastic Four number 51. Wedged between the 3-part debut of the Silver Surfer and Galactus in Fantastic Four 48 through 50, and the first appearance of the Black Panther in Fantastic Four 52, is arguably the most powerful cover that Jack Kirby ever drew. This man, this monster, is an iconic Silver Age Marvel story that focuses on the ever-loving blue-eyed thing. Written by Stan Lee and drawn by Jack Kirby, FF51 was published in June 1966. In addition to being a classic cover and story, Wyatt Wingfoot, who had debuted in the previous issue, makes his second appearance, and we're also introduced to the Negative Zone for the first time in this issue as well. Despite the influential cover and story, the market seems to have forgotten about this one. The record price for FF51 was set back in August of 2015 when a CGC 9.6 copy from the Rocky Mountain pedigree sold for $5,944. A non-pedigree 9.6 sold in July 2020 for $3,240. Recent sales for a CGC 8.5 and a CGC 8.0 copy in January of 2023 reflect $300 and $312 respectively. CGC 6.0 sales are averaging just $164 over the course of the last 90 days. So if you're searching for some eye candy for your comic book wall, give FF51 a look. In the runner-up position is a book that features the Silver Age return of one of Batman's greatest villains. Our number 2 book is Batman 234, the first Silver Age appearance of Harvey Dent, better known as Two-Face. Published in August 1971, which some people may not consider to be the Silver Age, but to me the Silver Age runs through Amazing Spider-Man 121 and 122, which came out in 1973, so forgive my Marvel bias. Regardless, this issue's main story was provided by the fabled DC Comics creative team of Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil. Adams also provided the cover for this issue, which touts the return of Two-Face. You might be wondering how long it had been since we had last seen Two-Face. Well, outside of an appearance in World's Finest Comics 173, which came out in February of 1968, which really wasn't Two-Face at all, it was just Batman dressed up as Two-Face, we hadn't seen the character for 17 years, since February 1954 when Batman 81 hit the stands. For whatever reason, when most of Batman's rogues gallery started to reappear in the early and mid-1960s, Harvey was left out. With the price correction we're currently in, this book has seen a slight dip in value recently, but 90-day average sales prices are mostly outpacing 2021 average prices in most grades. A CGC 8.0 copy has an average sales price of $591 across 3 sales in the last 90 days, where it averaged just $477 across 7 sales in all of 2021. CGC 6.0 copies are averaging just over $300 in the last 90 days when compared to comparable issues such as the first Silver Age appearances of the Penguin in Batman 155, the Riddler in Batman 177, and the Scarecrow in Batman 189. This issue definitely seems underappreciated in the current market. You may have noticed that this Comics to Invest In Top 10 list is a little different than what we've done in the past. Well, there's a reason for that, and to put it simply, times have changed. In the current market, it's tough to look at comics as a means of reliable investment. When the bluest of the blue chips, such as Amazing Fantasy 15 or Incredible Hulk 181 and the like, are seeing sizable corrections in value, there are not many safe havens for the average hobbyist. If you can afford to buy into major Golden Age or pre-code horror pre-issues, then this might not apply to you, but for most of us, 2023 is going to be a year of falling values and acting on newfound affordability for issues that are coming down from recent highs. If the economy takes a turn for the worse, we're likely to see a large drop in demand as comic book budgets transition over to shore up grocery and housing and utility accounts, likely driving values even lower. In short, until we make it through these interesting times we're living in, I'd advise buying comics that you want to collect, not comics that you think you can make money on. But now, let's check out the number 1 book. When I think of classic Silver Age covers, Amazing Spider-Man 50 is one of the first that comes to mind, but it's hard to consider that book to be underappreciated by any stretch of the imagination. So what's the next book that comes to mind? Well, it's the number 1 book on this edition of Comics to Invest In Before It's Too Late. Amazing Spider-Man number 100. Published in September 1971, Amazing Spider-Man 100 story marks the second to last nail in the coffin for Silver Age Amazing Spider-Man, with the first being the drug issues in ASM 96 through 98, and then the final blows coming with the death of Gwen Stacy and the Green Goblin in ASM 121 and 122. Much like the iconic ASM 50, Issue 100 sees a dejected Peter Parker ready to leave Spider-Man behind for good. He whips up a potion to counteract the radioactive spider bite he received back in AF-15, which is pretty impressive if you think about it. Back when I was in college like Peter is here, I was pretty lucky if I could successfully cook up a couple of Hot Pockets. Unfortunately, Peter's potion doesn't stick the landing, and it causes him to pass out. And when he comes to, he's grown 4 additional full-sized arms. As memorable as the Stan Lee and Gil Kane story is, For me, it's the John Romita Sr. cover that steals the show. And here's the best part. This book is stupid cheap in most grades. Looking at CGC 8.0 copies, the average sales price over the last 90 days is just $327 across 5 sales, which is only $59 below the 2022 average price in that grade. In 9.2, the 90-day average is $636, while 6.0s are selling just below $200 right now. A classic story, an iconic cover, and a criminally low price point, this book simply deserves more love. Collect responsibly, and I'll see you in the next video.